يا الله يا الله يا الله يا رحمن يا رحيم يا ملك يا قدوس يا سلام يا
أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لأهله والصلاة على أهلها وسلام على من اتبع الهدى أما بعد السلام عليكم ورحمة الله تعالى وبركاته. The Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa alihi wasallam, he says, أفضل الجهاد من أصبح لا يهم بظلم أحد. He says the best kind of jihad is a form of a person who wakes up in the morning with no intention of wronging somebody. This is the best form of jihad. Of course, a person will wake up in the morning with no intentions of hurting somebody, with no intentions of bringing oppression on somebody. But have we realized that the most oppression that we can cause is oppression within ourselves? The Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa alihi wasallam, he mentions this saying for us to really understand what is within ourselves before we take it outside. If we are the people not to hate others, not to bring oppression to others, what about the nafs that is within ourselves? How are we not oppressing the nafs within ourselves? How are we not putting the wrong intentions inside ourselves? Because the best kind of a person is a person who realizes the politics within his mind, the politics within himself. Before he sees the politics outside, before he understands the politics outside, he needs to understand the politics within his mind, the politics within his heart. That is obeying Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. It means when you start understanding yourself, you are heading towards the obedience of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And you are removing the veil of disobedience. You are bringing something that is called dignity upon yourself. When you have dignity upon yourself, you have an understanding of not oppressing within yourself. You are going to expose and you are going to transfer that dignity outside to other people and to the other world. That is the meaning of what the Prophet mentions in this saying, in this hadith. When you reduce yourself to the level where other people are taking advantage of your situation, and you're reducing yourself to the situation where you are a beggar, you are only the person who receives, you are only the person who sees opportunities in other people, you are disobeying Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Because this form of disobedience is coming in a way that you do not know yourself, you do not understand yourself, and you do not realize what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has placed into you, what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has given you as a human being. You need to have dignity, uplift yourself. Do not accept other people to take advantage of the situation that you are into. Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa alihi wasallam, in another saying, he mentions a very important point about the people who are ignorant and the person that is ignorant. He says, Innal jahila man asallaha. Indeed, the ignorant one is a person that disobeys Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. When you disobey Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, you are disobedient towards Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, because you do not know, you do not understand. That makes you to be an ignorant person. Before you understand and before you know something that is outside your world, you really need to understand what is within your world. When you understand what is within your world, and therefore you will wake up in the morning without having an intention of causing oppression to the people outside. Because within yourself there is no oppression. When you are a person who does not oppress yourself and others, it means you are obedient to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And Allah is going to grant more wisdom unto you. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is going to open the eyes of spirituality, and the wisdom is going to increase into you, because you are removing the veil of ignorance by understanding yourself, by understanding others, by not oppressing yourself, by not oppressing others. This is a connection that is there when you have to understand yourself, and when you know and realize how dignified you are as a human being. The Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa alihi wasallam, he continues in this hadith by saying, وَإِنْ كَانَ جَمِيلَ الْمَنْظَرِ الْعَظِيمَ الْخَطَرِ. He says, even if this person is beautiful to look at or is of great importance, still this person is an ignorant person. Why? He disobeys Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And we mentioned that one form of disobedience to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is by you not knowing yourself and not appreciating yourself, making other people take advantage of your situation, being the beggar every time. Not until you realize how important you are, not until you realize how African you are, that is when you are going to realize how Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is great in His creation. Because you are part of the creation of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Inside that part of creation, you are part of the dignified creation. You are in the human race. You are the human being. Imam Ali alayhi salam, about the ignorant person or the ignorant people, he says that an ignorant person does not see his shortcomings, and this person is not willing to accept advice from other people. It means when you do not understand how great you are and how dignified you are and how Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has made you to be as a human being, you are not going to see the shortcomings into you. And you are not going to be willing to accept advice from others. Learn to build yourself. Learn to understand yourself, because you've got a purpose in this dunya. And what is the purpose? The purpose is to worship Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. How are you going to worship Allah tabarak wa ta'ala if you cannot see within yourself? If you cannot realize your dignity within yourself? And if you cannot hear from others? Because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala speaks through others. Understand yourself, learn yourself, build yourself. That is when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is going to open the doors of mercies upon you. And that is when you are going to realize how great and how important you are as a human being. To build your society, to build your community, to build the best out of what you can do as a human being with the conditions and the obligations of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala upon you, you need to understand and you need to know the conditions of yourself. And therefore you should not accept any negative energies to come and impact your positive energy that you are supposed to take outside. That is the meaning of the first hadith when the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa alihi wasallam, he mentions about not having an intention of hating somebody when you wake up in the morning. Know the condition of your status. Know the condition on how your world is moving and how you are moving. Imam Ali alayhi salam, again in one of the points, he says that أَعَظَمُ الْجَهَلِ جَهَلُ الْإِنسَانِ أَمْرَ نَفْسِهِ. He says the greatest form of ignorance is the ignorance of a human being about his condition, meaning that he does not know the condition of his self and of his soul. In one of the saying, again, Imam Ali alayhi salam, he mentions very important points that whoever knows himself, knows his Lord, knows his Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. It means the greatest education for the revolution of your mind and the revolution of your community and of your society, you need to know yourself. You need to understand yourself. You need to know the condition of yourself. Do not reduce yourself to the level of the people that are beggars, the people that are only fed. You have to be the person that also feeds others. When you feed others, you understand how great you are, and you are going to put yourself at a responsibility level, and therefore you obey Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. This kind of obedience, when it is coming from knowing yourself, it is the greatest form of knowing your Lord Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, because Allah knows himself and Allah knows you. There is no ways you are going to know Allah tabarak wa ta'ala when you do not know yourself, when you do not understand yourself. With this, we are going to understand the greatest form of obedience to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. That is the form of knowing yourself and understanding yourself. The path of all the A'immah, the Ahlul Bayt, the household of the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa alihi wasallam, including the Prophet himself, was the path of understanding themselves and knowing how great they are as human beings. That is why all the infallible Imams and all the infallible people from the household of the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa alihi wasallam never accepted any form of oppression in this dunya, because they knew who and they understand their nafsi and their soul. It means these are the exemplary family that we are supposed to learn from, we are supposed to understand, and we are supposed to go through their footsteps if we want to be successful, and if we want to have the successful ummah, the successful community within the society of Islam. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi ta'ala wa barakatuh.
إن الله وملائكته يصلون على النبي يا أيها الذين آمنوا صلوا عليه وسلموا تسليما